Sahana bhavatu, sahano bhunaktu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditam astu ma vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that nourish us both. May we work together with great energy and vigor. May our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily disagree with each other. Peace, peace, peace beyond all. So this is question answer for spiritual seekers, and we are all spiritual seekers. So as usual, I will mute my microphone while you formulate some questions.
Swami, I have a question. I know if you say you want something, then you're expressing the fact that you have a lack of it. So what you're actually saying is there is a want for it, but do you get it as in cases of where, for example, I know sometimes you say about people wanting to pass exams and you say done, it's done, that's it. So when is it applicable to want for something or for someone else, or does God decide what it is, hunting for it yourself because it may not be the right thing for you?
So let me understand your question by repeating it. So what I've said previously is that if you even think, I want something, I want this, I want that, and it's an objective want, then and of course, well, I'll go into that later, but it's equivalent to saying I haven't got, and you won't get anything, and it'll be ineffective. And it's much better to put put what you want, if you like, as an accomplished fact. In other words, you apply faith and you put it in the past and say, already got, already accomplished. Can you just repeat and see? So with that background, can you now give the question again?
That's more or less it, Swami, yes. And it's the idea of wanting things, and by doing that you're saying you have a lack of it. Yes, that's it. But even by saying it's accomplished, that means in the first place originally you had a want for it, so therefore it's accomplished. And in the second place, I just find, maybe it's just me, but I find over the years I don't really want anything or ask for anything because I know God or whatever knows better than me what I should be having, what's good for me and what's good for me. Something along those lines.
Okay. So I give you the example of if you light a fire, the smoke will predictably go upwards because there's a certain order and rhythm in the universe. We call this dharma. What is absolutely noticeable from what is termed the anthropic principle. Anthropic principle means we observe that conditions, it's a theory. We observe that conditions seem absolutely right for our human life and existence because all of the constants necessarily in nature, over 20 of them, are so precise, gravitational constant being one of them, the cosmological constant, all of these constants are so finely tuned. This is called fine tuning. So there are various ideas about this. One idea would be, given the vastness of the universe, something like 400 billion if not more, maybe in the trillions of galaxies. And all that expenditure of energy just to provide for a geocentric position called Earth in the suburbs of uh, an ordinary galaxy with a star not that extraordinary. And so it goes on. So that's the one thing, the one point of view which is quite favored amongst materialist scientists who want at all costs to avoid God. The other point of view is that there's no other explanation for this fine-tuning except there's some movement in the whole universe, and we are many versions of this universe, which has a drive toward harmony and rhythm. And this something that drives it is what religion calls God. So there are some things which are predictable. And we can use the example of a fire, smoke goes upwards. It does not go downwards. There are laws of nature, and possibly these laws may have evolved over time, but there is some kind of impetus that has a starting point and unfolds, in our view anyway, toward a manifestation or a fulfillment. And so there has to be something like an intrinsic cosmic will that drives it. And we can call this God's will if you want. You can call it divine, inevitable will. But then you see which way the smoke curls. We'll have to take into account thousands of variables to know which way the smoke goes. Let's take the weather, for example. We know there will be weather tomorrow, and we can predict from satellite technology and so on, weather patterns. But we know that not all predictions will be correct. There'll be sudden diversions, sudden unforeseen inputs. And these unforeseen inputs is the variable nature. Now within us, we have the capacity to determine whatever we want. So it's correct that we have wants and needs. But there are two types of wants. One type assumes a dissatisfaction with the current situation. And this can be gross and it can be subtle. What do we mean? Gross means I want a house, say. Now, there's nothing wrong or right in wanting a house. You know, there can be a desire for a house from a selfish desire, or there can be a desire for a house where you can fit into the community and other people will enjoy the domestic environment. And you can even invite me and have talks and form Vedanta study groups there. Wonderful. And we all require shelter. So the requirement, the necessity, is another kind of want. We want shelter because we have to have shelter. We want food because we have to have food. So let's take food as an example. We want food. We have to have food to sustain ourselves physically. But the other type of want associated with food may be, I want, delicious food that not only do I like, but is exotic and exalted. Maybe people will think that I am enhanced by status. Maybe it's a question of pride. Maybe I am just attached to food which is classified perhaps as rajasic or tamasic. Delicious, no doubt, but harmful to my physical health. So it's not quite as simple as having a want. Wants and needs we can classify in the same kind of language, but they are different things. I want everybody on the planet to have sufficient food. Yes, it means that not everybody on the planet has sufficient food. Well, this comes under the category of nobility. It comes under the category of sattva, a purity of intention. There's no egoistic drive in it. And so that kind of prayer associate with the confidence, and here's the key to all prayer, associate the confidence that there is a being, from a theistic point of view, that will simply do the rest for us and carry it out. Now we can be a little bit more detailed in our understanding of this. If we have faith, it's equivalent to saying every thought is infallible. Every thought will find its logical conclusion. It'll come to its end, unless suitably neutralized by a counter thought. It's plus one, minus one, nothing will happen. I want, accompanied by the sentiment, I absolutely will get, because the power of thought is a divine power and nothing can stop it. Then it'll come to its conclusion. From a theological point of view, I want and I'm happy and confident that it will come to fruition, because God is all powerful and will do everything. I'm appealing to the highest authority in the whole universe and beyond. It'll come to fruition. So the key is faith. By putting it in the past, it's a statement of faith, already accomplished. It's already in hand, it's already done. And we won't even bother about the time lapse, because we have absolute confidence that whatever is accomplished will be according to a rhythm or a law or a divine will in its own time, at its own pace. But inevitably it will happen. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to put in a second appeal. So there's that distinct difference. And it's based on a certain science. So everything you seek with the attitude of, may it happen, I hope it happens. In other words, with the attitude of hope. Everything that you seek or want or desire will be far away. And it will elude you because it's far away. It's far away in the future, in the distance, and associated with doubt. And that's because you only seek that thing which is at a distance, in time and in space. And when you already have it, there's no need to seek. When you assert, I already have it, there's no need to seek any further. There's no need to keep it in the distance. It is right here, it is right now. So seeking or wanting or wishing isn't the right way of doing things. Releasing is the right way. You have to remove the mental obstacles that stand in the way of the fulfillment and allow the flow to come through. So the person who recognizes or can recognize that there will be obstacles, will devise a way to pierce through them. That person who does it is really free, and that's the only effort that is required. So your place in the world is seeking you. You're not seeking it. So we can relax and wait. And this let go attitude is the key to the fulfillment. So there's a key to this faith, and that is faith in the first thought that comes in response to a tuned condition of the mind. If my mind is tuned in, what I call my mind, my localized version of mind is tuned into the cosmic mind at all times. Cosmic mind is what we call a Jesus or a Buddha or Ramakrishna. Tuning in, or Logos, tuning into that cosmic mind. Then I'm confident that when a thought comes unasked, I know and I'm confident it comes from the divine voice of God. It comes from an impulse of spiritual intuition. It is God's message to me. Then I won't second think it, because if I second think it, it's a doubt. And that doubt will send me endlessly into analysis. Rather put it down, and with that faith and confidence, know that it will sail through unimpeded, because all I am is a small intermediary, a kind of, you see, the most of the communication today is radio communication. And so, in order for radio communication to work, there has to be a range, and the range difficulty, which is limited. You're going from microwave tower to microwave tower, and all you are is a temporary holding camp, if you like, or a temporary refreshing station. You know, in the old days, the only way people could communicate or send letters or mail or news was by Pony Express, a series of horses with interim stations. Inns is what they used to call, and they still call them. So that you're going long distances, let's say 200 kilometers. And so after, let's say, 40 kilometers or so, there's a rest. I'll give you a more up-to-date example. When I rode my bicycle from Mizenhead to Mallinhead, 620 kilometers an hour, after 40 kilometers, took a break, a comfort break, maybe a little energy boost by way of an energy bar or something like that. And then the next 40 kilometers, making 80 kilometers, let us say, and then have lunch. And then as it goes on. So all we are is small stopping stations, refreshment stations, pushing the thought on. That's all we are. And so if we have confidence that the thought or the original thinker, which is behind all thought, will carry through to its final conclusion, that's all that's necessary. Now there's a restriction to it. What is the restriction? You can do everything, you can change everything by thought. The yogi can transform anything. The yogi can make multiple bodies for himself, herself. The yogi can conquer gravity. The yogi can have bilocation. If the yogi chooses to engage these powers or these siddhis. But that's all theory, because the yogi has power over prana, pranayama. And prana means the entire energy in the entire universe. But no god or demon or yogi or saint or mystic can ever change the position of the sun and the moon. It's not desirable. There are certain set things which are intrinsically in favor of harmony. And without the sun positioned as it is, that distance from the earth, that place in the suburban areas of our galaxy, if we went into the inner city of our galaxy, we'd be swallowed up apparently by a black hole. And it's a violent area. So we sit nicely in the suburbs, away from the hub and bub, the hustle and hassle of the city, and sit there in the suburbs nicely, basking in our solar energy, with the earth rotating nicely, but still there's a law. Gravitational law is there. And Newton's law, which is an inverse square law, is a proven law. Understanding it to be inverse square law, you then take it from the beginning to the end and from the end to the beginning, and now you have a workable hypothesis which is proven through observation, mathematical calculation, and so on. So these are set things. These are things which are unchangeable. So there's the changeable and there's the unchangeable. Theoretically, we cannot look in the mirror one day and say, my nose would look much better on the back of my head. Let me change it through my yogic, but you can't do it. You can't do it because, although theoretically it's possible, it would simply be an impractical thing, functionally, because it's not designed in this way. And so that's what I would have to say. I'm going to unplug this microphone now, just to see if that was the answer to your question, and see if there are any more questions.
Yes, Swami, that was excellent. But, am I being very naive in thinking that it's very, I don't know the word, is it very fatalistic or is it perhaps being lazy in thinking that, or not wishing to be arrogant, that I think that I know what's best in wanting for anything, so I just leave it up to God, who will know a lot better than me what I need.
We have a little friend, Swami, and he has a saying. He says, "The universe is watching, and it'll take care of all your needs." So I think that, what about?
Well, okay, let me just respond to that. So there is a temptation to, in letting go, we can let go to the extreme and be fatalists, and that doesn't work, because that means literally nothing happens. So you see, there is a typical inquiry from people who've heard about non-dualism. So if there's only one existence, which is non-dual, and if the relative world doesn't really exist in a permanent way, then we need do nothing, since we are Brahman. That's one fallacy. The fallacy is, well, that's okay in theory, but you don't know it. And you can't dismiss the relative world because it is true and it is real, but it is relatively real. It's in relation to what captures it, eyes, ears, and so on. And within the framework also of the world itself. So some self-effort is required, and Ramakrishna has this beautiful example. Ramakrishna comes up with simple, beautiful, high-impact examples. He says the wind of God's grace is always blowing. We have but to set our sails. Now that sounds like a simple formula, but as I say to people, have you ever tried to set sail? Those people who've had some kind of experience, probably humorous experience, first time at sailing, will know that they'll get, all the pulleys mixed up, and the ropes will get entangled quickly, and they will get hit on the head with the swinging boom of the sails. And there's a lot to do and a lot to think of. But you see, only setting the sails, well, you have to hoist a mast. You have to have the muscular power to do that. You have to do it in such a way that ropes do not get entangled. You then have to apply your muscular power in order to, once attaching the sails, to hoist the sail. But only a little bit of the sail being exposed, or the surface area being exposed, will show you very, very quickly the wind wants to take it and run. And it's the wind that does the bulk of the work. But it doesn't diminish our self-effort. So there has to be a self-effort in the right direction. That is, there has to be energy which is harnessed and directed according to in a useful, positive way. Fatalism belongs to those who believe in full and thorough determinism. And full and thorough determinism means predeterminism, and there are some theological schools that go along with it. For example, Calvinism in Christianity will say it's all predestined. It's predestined, whether you're good or whether you're bad. At the end of the day, God has already decided your fate. You either go to the upwards or downwards, and that's all there is to it. So then the question arises, well, why even bother then? No self-effort is required. And then there's the fatalism that comes with an element of pseudo pseudo-determinism, for example, astrology. And there's the famous story, once more, of the astrologer who goes to a king's court. And the prime minister says, I hear you have an astrological chart for my king. He says, yes. He says, but I have bad news for you. What is that? Your king will not survive beyond 6 months. Now the king is pretty healthy. So it means some unusual intervening circumstance will be there to ambush the king. But you see, supposing we protect the king at all costs, keep him away from danger, make sure that he's protected by bodyguards continuously, then what will happen? Seeing that it is not a good thing for the kingdom, that the king will have his demise in 6 months, the prime minister, who is quite a wise man, he says to the astronomer, and how long do you think you will live? And the astrologer quickly tells him, I'm going to live for the next 26 years. And with that, the prime minister cut his head off. What became of his prediction? So while things may be set according to certain rhythms and patterns, they're not fixed. They're not truly fixed, because there's nothing more powerful than a thought movement, because it comes from cosmic mind, and we can change our fortune, but it requires tuning in to the cosmic mind. It requires a certain discipline. It requires discipline of body, speech, and mind, all of them. It requires strengthening our will. It requires efficiency in terms of using the energy resource that we have and the time frame that we have, and matching the two together so that we get the maximum use of divine grace that flows through, not only as energy, but also opportunity called time. And using it properly is what is called karma yoga. Last night we talked about concentration. Concentration means taking the resource of time and making sure that the energy, psychic energy called thought, is able to make use of every second that appears, and our hands, our organs of action, are able to efficiently use every minute. Minute is the currency of our activity, and seconds are the currency of our thought. And when we combine the two, then we are making a battery of will in the human body and mind that, firstly, knows how to overcome every obstacle. Secondly, has the confidence and faith of a swift, unbeatable wind. And with that knowledge that it is the divine grace which appears as thought, which appears as energy, be it physical, be it material, be it the sun's energy, whatever it is, energy is one. We call it prana, yogic language, prana. And with that confidence, and with the fact that we know that God's will is infallibly in favor of harmony and rhythm, in a sense, designed. There's a big movement, intelligent design, using example that at the very lowest molecular level, we come across irreducible complexity. And the example is a mousetrap, where you have different parts. If you take each part separately, it has no function and no use and no purpose, and doesn't have anything to do with survival or life. But when you add a second part, you have the same dilemma. It is only when all the parts are assembled that it has any functional use. So somewhere there's a drive toward purpose. We can call it divine will. By tuning into that divine will, you see, the Christian prayer says it, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Thy will be done here in my particular environment that I call earth, my field of endeavor, or my field of action, my field of experience, and the divine will. And when these two match and are attuned, then we know that things will glide along smoothly, because it requires a let go attitude that has faith, but not let go of actions. We don't let go of actions, and we don't let go of intentions, and we don't let go of goodwill, we don't let go of charity, and we don't let go of all the noble impulses in man that brings us a purity of mind that allows for this alignment between individual and cosmic wills. So all of these are necessary. And it's not determinism. The world we live in, at the surface level, is a deterministic world in the sense that it is based on a law of causality. You cannot have an effect without a cause. And you can ask the question, why? Why did a tsunami happen? Well, because there was a volcanic floor in the seabed, on the seabed, which erupted, and that created a wave, massive wave, that had its causal knock-on effect until it hit shallow water, a sandbank, and backed up and made a colossal wave, and destroyed tourists taking photographs of it, but not animals who understood the situation by intuition and sought higher ground. And then what was the cause then of the geological anomaly? Well, it's not really an anomaly. The Earth's crust is like that. It's a series of shifting plates, and it's intrinsically a result of how the Earth was formed in the first place, and how we have an iron core, and because of that, how we have a magnetic field that deflects cosmic rays and allows us to live and breathe. So then what caused the Earth? You see, you can go why and why and why, and ultimately each step of the why is a kind of meditation, because what was there before the Earth formed? Some divine entity stood there, as it were, to attention, and wove a fabric, as it were, around itself called the Earth, and occupied it, and is continuously spinning it and operating from within. And we can put it in a feminine gender and say it's Mother Earth because of its nurturing characteristic. So yes, causation in that sense, but that's far from a fatalistic determination that says that everything actually was predestined. You sitting here listening to me was already caused long ago. It had to happen. It was inevitable. You had no free will or free choice in it. And so the argument of free will comes up in these arguments. And there are many people, materialist people possibly, who are living with Newtonian physics only, who are happy to say that the whole thing is predetermined because they don't want to admit that there is an individual will. Because if you admit there's an individual will, then you're saying something about morality, an individual choice about moral behavior, which according to reductionist materialists is only there because of a learned social convenience behavior, that we're only good and kind in society and have legal structures. It's only because society can get on well, because we have learned it in our biological evolution. We have learned to survive. There's nothing to do with goodness, nothing to do with purity, nothing to do with altruism, and doesn't explain any of these things. That's the only argument which is there. And so the theological person will argue tooth and nail that we have free will. And that means then that things are not fully determined. But of course, it's a mix of the two. There is a fixed thing and a variable thing. And the fixed thing we should not change. If we try to change it, it won't work anyway. The variable gives us the opportunity, and only man has it, to transform discord into harmony. That's our job, transforming discord into harmony. That's far from laziness and far from fatalism.
Beautifully explained, Swami.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you. Wonderful.
So we have another 15 minutes to play with.
Can dharana be done on any object that you're, let's say, you're drawn to, or should it be an object prescribed by your guru or by a text?
Okay. All right. Dharana is a state of mind which by its nature is not prescribed unless it is prescribed by scripture. The guru's words are invalid if they don't correspond with scripture. But what about a personal individual formula? Please concentrate on a certain object. Yes, that may be prescribed by a guru, knowing your mental state and mental tendency and what is the best thing to concentrate on. But generally, as a general rule, dharana is something that we have the capacity to do, and we are doing it already. And I'll give you an example, and I've given you the example millions of times before, and I don't think the person involved is with us, so that's okay. So there was somebody, no names, no pactoral, who told me that they attended a concert for some 4 hours, and it was here at the O2. And I said, what wonderful powers of concentration you have. And he said, what do you mean? I was there, I was enjoying the concert. I said, but did you get bored? No, I was thoroughly entertained. So what do we mean by dharana or concentration? It means taking the faculty of attention and allowing it to alight in an exploratory way on an object. The object can be external, the object can be internal, the object can be abstract, the object can be real in a relative sense, nonetheless, an object. Now, whatever you concentrate on, the qualities and the properties of that will come to you. And so we're not saying that it is good or bad, but concentration by itself is a way of controlling that faculty of the mind, which is attention. And that is always beneficial. It is always strengthening to the mind and strengthening to the will, because the mind is normally in either a scattered condition or a concentrated condition, or somewhere in between. For most people, somewhere in between, and periodically scattered and periodically concentrated. And the aim really of dharana is to make that concentration steady, not erratic. How do we do it? Well, yesterday or last night, I spoke about concentration and I spoke about mindfulness. And mindfulness really is concentration in action, in motion. Because mindfulness of the type that is taught everywhere now, popularly, is taking any ordinary action that we normally take for granted and putting all our experience into it. For example, if you eat a fruit, you can do it absent-mindedly because it fulfills the need for food. You can do it while the mind is engaged somewhere else. Or you can do it in such a way that you taste every morsel, appreciate every morsel, and cultivate a kind of inner feeling of satisfaction over it. And all of this is observed. And what is the benefit of that? Firstly, there's a practical benefit. You get more enjoyment from the unit activity. Secondly, it puts you in the present moment, and dharana is putting yourself in the present moment in such a way that you feel there is no, or you feel the absence of a sense of time. Because time has a kind of line, and we understand that something happened in the past, and we understand that there's an unknown future, like a train coming in a linear way. But you see, the present moment does not construct past and does not construct future. And because of that, the anxiety of the future is gone, and the regret of the past is gone. And we're attuned in the present moment. In that present moment, we will find the source of our own being in that present moment. And so a series of those present moments directed in the same way toward one single object will be what is called dharana. Now, what should we concentrate on? It doesn't really matter, because generally the general direction of dharana is effective when we employ it in all circumstances, in our work, in our leisure, and ultimately in our meditation. So dharana is a game of guiding thought, whereby we take a series of thoughts, and in spirituality, we direct those thoughts more and more and more, so that one single thought survives. That one single thought is called dhyana or meditation. And any guidance from a guru or from scripture will be with this aim in mind. So that would be my answer.
Sorry, Swami. So Swami, you said that you can focus on the external object. Does that mean you can enter jhana or meditation and then samadhi by an external object? Because I might be not reading correctly, but I only thought it was an internal object to be counted as dharana.
What is the purpose of dharana? We have to understand. The purpose of dharana is to take our attention and allow it to alight on a single object. Now, here's the point. There is no external or internal to a single object. Because when we analyze the external object, so-called, we can see that it is made from subtler elements and subtler forces. And so when we talk about these three things together on any object, that is dharana, dhyana, samadhi, we see that there is a gradation of experience. Dharana leads the attention, leads the mind, brings in, you see, before all of that, there has to be pratyahara. We have to gather in all the energetic forces of the mind so that they are available to project like a laser beam. The projection like a laser beam will be dharana or concentration. We can direct it any way we like, but supposing it's an external object, so-called, we'll find it has an internal dimension. And so any object can lead us to the one source, our own blissful base. And at that point, we not only internalize or discover the interior of the object, but simultaneously, we also explore our own interior because we take it in. How is it so? It's because every object is a form. And then there is that form when it's replicated, when it's internalized. It is now a name. The combination of this is called nama-rupa. And by internalizing it, that now leads us to an interior type of dharana. And so I think it's a false dichotomy to categorize things as external and internal. It's just a convenience thing, that's all. Because any form of dharana will lead us toward a settlement of mind, and the concentration becomes a revealing factor. How is it that the ancient rishis were able to discover physical laws? They took the outside world and then analyzed it with one criteria in mind, Let us find out how permanent it is. And in doing that, without any scientific instrumentations, only with the laser beam of the mind, they revealed all the interior nature of what they were exploring and discovering. But the ultimate interior nature will be one single thing at its best. If we're exploring the blissful base of it, at its best, we then find out what is this fundamentally. See, the Bhagavad Gita tells us something very interesting in the 10th chapter. It says, Nami viduhu sura gana, neither the deities, that is, all the cosmic beings, nor the great sages, the wise people, know my origin, the source. For in all respects, I am the source of them, and I am the source of sages, but I'm also the source of anything and everything. So if we want to trace the source of something, inevitably, the process is dharana, dhyana, samadhi.
Swami, I understand what you said, but I maybe asked the question a little wrong. You were talking about, you look at an external object, you replicate it by making it a mental thought. So I know this is incredibly dull. Let's say I look at a table, then I internalize it and concentrate on the mental object of a table. I was more talking about, can it be counted as dharana if you just look at a table and instead of concentration on the table, it's not inside the mind. You're just looking with your eyes.
Kind of a mesmerization. You know, in the 1960s, people were saying, sit and gaze into a flame and you'll go half blind as a result, of course. So I don't see any merit in that. However, if you're exploring what is the nature of a table, that's different. So concentration or dharana in that sense is not a kind of mesmerization or something for its own sake. It is there to lead the mind to the inner dimension of a table, if you take that example. When you explore the inner dimension of it, then you have the subtle forces that make up this table. And when you analyze those sacred forces with the analysis of reflection, it is a kind of concentration that explores. And when you explore more, you'll see that these subtle forces, these subtle elements, come from one cosmic mind. And when you tune into the cosmic mind, you're now on an interior journey, because you'll see that the cosmic mind that produces the subtle elements, that produces a table, that produces the eyes which see it, or the skin which touches it, is one thing. And when you find out this cosmic mind, this is an interior journey. It's inevitable.
Oh, thank you, Swami. Appreciate it.
Just a while ago, you were talking about the fate, and everybody has a predetermined fate, and there is something called fixed, and something is like variable in everybody's life. Like it just is fixed. We know we are born in certain. How to differentiate between the two things?
And I did not say that. I said quite the opposite. What I said was there are fixed things in the universe. So, for example, the natural unfolding or evolution of a species culminates in man. That is fixed because man has the equipment for revelation. And so you can't do it without that. So even the deities have to be reborn as humans in order to get their freedom or access their freedom. That aspect of it is fixed. What we call laws of nature are fixed. Now, of course, they may not always have been fixed. They could have also evolved, but you cannot change them since they are laws. But your own life, that's what you can change. That's what should be focused on. So there's a mistake, I think, when people think that there is any kind of predestination of any kind. No, the universe runs on causality. And part of that causality is the way you think. Change your thinking, you change your destiny. In all the 6 philosophies that we have, one of them is Sankhya. Most of these philosophies, by the way, are atheistic philosophies. So Sankhya is atheistic. It doesn't believe in an extra cosmic creator God. It doesn't believe in a God in the conventional sense of things. Yoga acknowledges some kind of ancient teacher that they call Ishvara, a lord of beings, but no details go with that and no properties go with it. And then you'll have Vaisheshika, which is purely an atomic theory. You have Nyaya, which is to do with logic. You have Mimamsa, which is to do with mobilizing the forces of nature through mantras and rituals. And then you have Uttari Mimamsa, what we call Vedanta, as an umbrella term. And within that, dualism is theistic. It believes in a God. Vishishta Dvaita believes in a panentheistic God, and Advaita doesn't believe in it at all. So you can see, by and large, the ultimate cause in terms of philosophy is essentially biased toward atheism. But the popular implementation is, by and large, theistic and believes in a God. So how do we persuade the people of the Sankhya persuasion who have no God? How do you pose a question that theistics are posed quite often? The world seems to be a catastrophe. Why did God make such a bad world? And why did he create pain and suffering? And the Sankhya answers, don't ask me this question. I don't believe in such a God. Then what do you propose to do to change it? The Sankhya says, please change your thinking. And as soon as you shift your thinking and glide across the border of unity, things change straight away. So thought is the most powerful tool we have, and we are the masters of our own destiny. And nature is subordinate to the higher author of it, and that is the cosmic mind, the cosmic thinker, knower, and witness in one. And that's your nature. Okay, so I think we have exceeded our time. So I hope this was useful and helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Swami. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Okay.
Thank you for me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Yes.